Welcome to the channel today, and we're going to be fighting that. It looks like today I'm going to be going over a 4-year review of the wheel hoe. I know a lot of people that take the wheel hoe out, they'll use it once or twice, but this is my perspective from having it for a while. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is why I got the wheel hoe. Out here we get lots of rainfall. Last year we got like 70 inches of rainfall the first 6 months of the year. Normally we get around 60 inches a year. Rainfall. That's five inches a month average, and it's pretty much spaced out throughout the whole year. And I gardened out in West Texas. We didn't get that kind of rain, and weeds weren't that big of a problem. I mean, we'd have weeds, but we'd take a regular hoe and we'd hoe them up, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Even to the point sometimes you could pull the weeds because they just wouldn't grow as fast. Come out here the first 2 years, I put in 150 foot rows. And it would rain, and I might miss. I done most of my garden on the weekends, and it would rain, and I think, well, it's too wet. I try to take the hoe, and it just kind of make a gummy mess. I might make 20 foot or whatever. I wait till the next week, because the weeds are about this tall. I wait till the next week, well, now the weeds are this tall, and they're even harder to deal with. And then after, if it went another week, I couldn't get in there. Now they're this tall, boot high. At that point, you've lost it. Did that 2 years in a row, trying to figure, okay, I've got to figure out how to garden and be able to control the weeds on a regular basis. I didn't want, some people say, well, go get your tiller. Well, I had a big tiller. I didn't want to bring the tiller in there and re-till up everything, destroy all the roots that's on the plants beside it. Plus, tillers are kind of big and unwieldy, and they can jump over and wipe out your rows. So that wasn't a good idea. So really it came down to, I really had 3 choices. Number one, I could rely solely on your regular hose, your regular field hose people talk about, or a hoop hoe, which a hoop hoe is, it looks like this. But again, that's just 4 to 6 inches wide. And for individual weeds, like that weed right there, can you see that one? It's dead, okay? It does work on weeds that size or smaller, but it's not going to cover a lot of area very fast. So, and I'd already kind of tried that, and it just didn't work because it got wet. And I was really trying too late to control the weeds. I was looking at the weeds when it became a problem and then trying to control them. So that was my first mistake. So that didn't work. The second thing I looked at was trying to get one of those small tillers, kind of get small cultivating tillers like Mantis sells. Those things are expensive. They're like $400 something. And I also looked at maybe trying to get an electric one because I hate a bunch of stupid gas-powered things, especially with the when you're looking at at those small engines like that, like weed eaters and stuff. Notoriously, I can't get the stupid thing started. If you don't use it for a couple, 3 months, all of a sudden you can't get them started. And with the weed trimmer, I had bad, because even if you did get them started, they would break. If you try to use all electric, you got that stupid cord you're having to fiddle with. The batteries do go bad after a while, so I just didn't like those that well. Plus, they work on a very fast speed, so they're going to shatter your soil. Now, I'm not a no-dig gardener in any shape, form, or fashion. Bunch of bugs, but I don't want to shatter my soil. It's just not good for the soil. It's not good for the weeds. I do till. I like to think of myself as a minimum till or minimum dig gardener. I don't, just till just to be tilling. So, I'll probably till after my crop's over and maybe before I start the next one. So you're looking at maybe tilling this land 2 or 3 times a year, and that's it. I don't want to be tilling it, 12, 15 times. It's just excessive. And then I found the Hoss Wheel Hoe. Now, it's kind of expensive too, but not as expensive. Right now, I think they're selling, I looked up for $279, free shipping. And this is what you get if you do a single wheel hoe. Now, they got some that's got 2 wheel hoes. They got one that's got a high arch wheel hoe. I will say, I think the high arch wheel hoe is kind of a one-trick pony. It's really good for making furrows and bedding up things. It does a phenomenal job for that, especially for corn and like the potatoes here. But they're expensive too. I opted for the cheaper one, which I tend to do. Now, I'll tell you right from the front part, there are limitations. First off, they do not work well if you got a lot of trash on your, or residue on your field. These things here, these tines, they'll get clogged up and they'll ball up on you. It just doesn't work very well. Okay, so if you're going to have if you're going to go in there and you're going to put in your you're going to put in your cover crop, you're going to mow it down or spray it or whatever you do, these things aren't going to be very effective because you're going to have to go back in the regular tiller and retill it. Number two, you've got to use them consistently. Don't think you're just going to do this every once in a while. You don't want your weeds to get very big or they're going to get away from you. So it does take, you know, you may be doing this every week to 2 weeks. You're not going to be saying, I'm going to do this once a month. If you do it once a month, they're going to get away from you. It's not going to work very well. But nothing's going to work very well, by the way. And then I also did use, to backtrack a little bit, I didn't put this on my notes, so I didn't remember it. I also tried the fabric, landscape fabric. It does really good for a year. It does fairly well for 2 years. After 3 years, bull with it, you know. Everybody does that. They try for a year or two. I don't see anybody, I've seen very few people, if anybody, use it for 10 years in a row. They just don't work long term. Anyway, just forgot about that one. Now, the knife versus the tines. These right here works really well for just roughing up the soil like this. And like I say, I'm barely pushing on it, okay? And it's going to rough that soil up. Works really well, okay? And that's all you're trying to do. And because what you're trying to really kill is these little bitty microscopic weeds. Let's see if we can get down there and look at them. It's these weeds this size. This little weed like this. When you run that thing across there, it's going to break that soil up. See, here's some stuff here. And it's going to kill these little bitty ones. They're going to dry up. They're going to die. This one here's going to die. That's what you're trying to kill. You don't want them to get a whole lot bigger than this. Now this size here, it'll kill those. Not a problem. But that's what you're aiming for. All right? So as long as you keep it small, these tines work really well. They roughen up the soil, and your weeds never get a chance to start. I've been using it through here. Got a lot of rain. Haven't used it consistent as I should have, but it's worked well for that. Then you got ones called the blade. This one's separate. And you put that, let me back it up a little bit. You got these 3 bolts to take off. You got these 2 bolts to put it on. And then what you really got is a more portable, wide hoop hoe. And it will go down there. And if you got any bigger weeds, especially in the summertime, you got careless weeds or whatever, you know, weeds this size, does a good job on those. Okay, these have gotten a little bit big. What happened with those tines, they'll go around this deal and they won't actually pull these up. But that other knife blade will go underneath it and cut that root. And when it's hot, that's enough to kill it. Now, if you get a rain rod after it, it might re-root, but that's not that big of a problem. Now, you do need to cultivate your field. Don't think that you can walk out and buy you a wheel hoe and you don't need a tiller. You're going to have to plow this stuff up somehow so you can work it, so you can move through it. Even if you got clay soil, I think it'd do okay on it, because even your clay soil will crust over. What you're trying to do is keep that crust broken up. As soon as it dries up, get in there with the wheel hoe and break up that crust, you won't get the weeds. You got to keep the thing out of the weather. Okay, this thing's made out of wood. I've had it for 4 years. You can buy it where you get some linseed oil. And I have used linseed oil at one time. I should use some more, but it's still in really good shape, you know. And to keep it out of the weather, you know, I have left it out overnight sometimes because I knew I'm going to work back out here. I don't want to drag it back and forth, but don't let it rain on it a bunch. You're going to warp this wood. You know, it's just like you should all your tools, but especially this one, because, you know, this tool here, I can get it for 40, 50 bucks at the store. Maybe 30. If it breaks, it's not that big a deal. It's not 270 like this one is, so I take better care of this one. But they also come with the plow attachment, the furrow attachment where you can make a furrow. Honestly, if you had a bunch of them, it'd probably be worth it, but I just use this here. To me, it's just simpler. It takes about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, well, probably 5 minutes to change this thing out. But in 5 minutes, I can do a whole lot of making a furrow with this thing. So that's just me. If I had a larger area, I think that would work better. The other thing that would save you if you're just going to do the furrow deal is if you aim for something, you can aim for it and have a pretty straight row. But when I went to college, I was talking to guys that plowed, and they said one thing you can never do is plow a straight row if you ever look back. So if you're up there in the tractor plowing and you start looking back trying to roll up, they says your rows can be like this. They're going to go all over the place. So you got to look straight. This thing will let you look straight, and I can aim right for something. And I keep the row straight if that's what I'm looking for. So that would be something. I just haven't used it that much. So in all honesty, I might be messing up. It might be hurting me, but I just don't. And even with healing the stuff up in here, if I had a double wheel hoe, I probably would use it more. But to me, I can still take a hoe and rake this. I'll use this to roughen up the soil, and I'll pull the soil back up on it. So. Now, where does it excel? Okay, why is it, why am I saying, yeah, it's a good deal? It excels if you use it after every rain. Because like I say, this stuff, we had rain on it, really easy to brush the soil up, and that'll pretty much keep everything intact, all right? And I like that. I think that's a really good job for that. So, that's where it excels at. It's easy to push. I'm not having to struggle. Now, it'll give you a little workout if you do a whole lot of this, but it's an endurance workout. It's not a workout. You're not trying to push this thing down here really deep like this. You're just trying to hit the top of that soil, So that's, if you're worried about that, I think just about anybody could do it. You just don't try to plow with this thing. You're just trying to bust that crust up over the top. Very durable. I think this will last me a lifetime. I could wheel this to my kids, but I don't think they want it. None of my kids are gardeners. And maybe some of that I'll change. I never try to push them into it, but they're just not really gardeners. So, but I got 4 boys, and none of them really have a great interest. Patrick, the one that's filming, has more interest in the rest of them. And it only takes about 5 minutes, like I said, to change the implements on it. Now, would I use this if I had raised beds? I don't think so. Just for the fact, if you got a 4x8 raised bed, by the time you put this thing in a raised bed and you're going down the raised bed, you're going to hit the end of the raised bed and it's going to hit that wheel. Well, you got 18 inches that hasn't been done. And really, you can do the same thing or about the same thing with a hoop hoe. So if you're in a raised bed situation, I think the hoop hoe is the way to go. You can do a lot of work there, and like I say, it's a small area that you're having to work on. So it's not this big area. Like I say, it's nothing like what I have right here. Just here and over there, I think a wheel hoe would be way better. It would be worth managing. And that over there really is about time I need to start using a wheel hoe on that, just to keep the stuff up. Last year it looked like this, and I was up at the hospital, and we got a bunch of rain, and we took it. But that's because I was not using a wheel hoe. So, if you have 500 to 1,000 square feet, I think the wheel hoe is very, probably the most useful tool you have. It's expensive, because $270 for me, that's but I would not be successful out here gardening without it. I would have had to have bought a Mantis, which would have been more expensive, would not have lasted me as long. I had to mess with gasoline and all that stuff. I could have got the battery operated ones. And they weren't a whole lot cheaper if I recall right. But again, they're going to shatter your soil. The battery's going to wear out after a while. The only thing that's going to wear out on this wheel hoe is you. I'm at that age you start worrying about that. But I like it. And I'm not affiliated with Hoss. I do buy a lot of stuff from Hoss Tools. But I do think it's something that our forefathers used, and we kind of got out of it because our gardens got smaller, so we just used regular hoes and stuff. But if you're going to go with any bigger garden, I do highly recommend it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.